Our next speaker is Roger Nicholson. Roger is a native of the San Francisco Bay Area. He currently works as a marketing communications manager for a high-tech semiconductor equipment company based in Northern California. Received his Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from BYU and an MS in Computer Engineering from Santa Clara University in 1993. There's more in his bio. Roger's been active with FAIR and has been our Wiki manager. So I think you'd like to hear this comments from Roger Nicholson.
I roll out of bed at the crack of dawn and know I really should go out and mow my lawn. But my computer beckons, and I know yet that someone is wrong on the internet. So I sit right down and I begin to write, and soon the day has passed into night. I really must go, yet there's one edit more that has to be made as I go out the door. So now, texting furiously using my thumbs, something wiki this way comes. Back in 1978, I was a student at BYU before my mission, and I found myself at the BYU bookstore. I'd always been interested in LDS history. I was fascinated by it. I thought it was just an amazing thing, the history of the church. So I was browsing through the stacks at the bookstore, and I ran across a book. It was a history, a biography of Joseph Smith, Jr. I thought, this is cool. I'll take a look at this. This was the book. Now, I was in the BYU bookstore, remember, so I pulled this book down, and I thought, okay, I've never heard of Fawn Brodie, but this looks interesting. And I started thumbing through the pages, and it didn't take me very long to realize that Fawn Brodie wasn't really a believer in Joseph Smith as a prophet. But she was a good writer, and she was easy to read. And so I just kept browsing through the book. And then I got back to the appendices, and I think it was Appendix C that kind of stopped me cold. The Plural Wives of Joseph Smith, Jr. Now, that was new to me. I'd never heard of that before. I thought, really? But there were page after page of information about different people that were Joseph Smith's wives. And I came to realize that, okay, there must be something to this. Brigham Young practiced polygamy, and Joseph Smith must have instituted it. I incorporated that into my view of church history and moved on. But that was 1978. And finding that information took a bit of work for me to go to the bookstore and actually find the book and find that information in the book. Well, now it's not so hard, is it? Now, we just go to our nearest computer. We go to Google. We go to our phones. We go there and we type in Joseph Smith. And what comes up? $26 million results in about 1/10 of a second. 26 million results in 1/10 of a second. Now let me ask you this, because I'm sure that many of you, maybe you've Binged, maybe some of you have even Yahoo'd, but I bet every one of you Googles. Google has become a verb. And how many of you would actually check all 26 million results? I know I haven't. What you look at on Google is what comes up on the first page. And what comes up on the first page for Joseph Smith? Well, the first one, thankfully, is a church website. Joseph Smith. But look at what number 2 is. Something called Wikipedia. Wikipedia and Google are good friends in these search results. it's very likely that if you go to Google and type in just about any subject, that one of the first results, if not the number one result, will be Wikipedia. You can look up anything in Wikipedia, and I mean literally anything. You don't believe me? There's an article in Wikipedia called Intentionally Blank Page. Now, just because an article exists doesn't necessarily mean it ought to exist, but in this case, somebody felt that it was notable enough that we needed a Wikipedia article about intentionally blank page. Uncombable hair syndrome. I bet some of you have been wondering about that one and have Googled that. And I can assure you that if you ever do need to Google that, Wikipedia has an answer for you. Fox tossing, a game which involves the throwing of live foxes from one person to another. But Wikipedia is also useful. A student diagnoses his rare heart condition after being rejected by 10 doctors by looking it up in Wikipedia. Wiki fixed sickie. Wikipedia carries some credibility. A student a couple of years ago decided to test Wikipedia by inserting a quote. It was a phony quote that was supposed to have come from a famous French composer that had recently died. He created a quote, inserted it into that composer's Wikipedia biography, and then watched to see what would happen. What happened was the quote ended up being attributed to the composer and was quickly copied into his obituary on websites all over the world. Now, to Wikipedia's credit, the Wikipedia administrators realized that the quote had no source, and they removed it. Yet, 1 month passed, and nobody in the media seemed to notice the difference, until the student himself finally came forward and said, "Hey guys, it's a fake." And then they removed it. That is the power that Wikipedia has to influence the media, or any of us. What is a wiki? It's not a chair that you sit on in your family room. It's a database. It's a collection of articles. It can be a very large collection of articles. Wikipedia is one of the largest collection of articles in a wiki anywhere. They have thousands and thousands of articles. Now, here are 3 examples of wikis. We've got Mormon Wiki, the Fair Wiki, and of course, Wikipedia. Mormon Wiki is sponsored by the More Good Foundation, and it is a collection of articles which is intended to describe issues related to the church in a faith-promoting manner. The Fair Wiki is Fair's own wiki, and I'll talk more about that later. Wikipedia is what we're going to talk about now. The collection of articles in Wikipedia is interesting because it involves what's called collaborative editing. Now, what happens is, let's suppose you have a Wikipedia article on Reformed Egyptian. A person can initiate or create that article, say they're on the West Coast. It could be me, but I didn't create that article. Now, the person that creates the article does his best to try to put together an article and source it. But then somebody else can come along from, say, Europe, and they can edit the article. And then somebody on the East Coast can make their edits to the article. Even somebody in Asia can come in and edit the article. This is collaborative editing. You have people all over the world coming in to edit these articles together. Now, that's an interesting situation. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But first, I would like to ask you the question, who in the world would use Wikipedia to learn about the church? Well, Trey Parker and Matt Stone attributed a mass of their knowledge to the religion to lots of Wikipedia time. Shameless fanatics of the collegiate banned online encyclopedia, Parker and Stone went on to share, the Latter-day Saint Church has its own Wikipedia. So they make it very easy for someone who wants to learn a lot about their church. Well, that brings up the question, does the church control LDS articles in Wikipedia? The answer is they don't. Who actually creates and edits Wikipedia articles about our church? Anyone. Anyone who has spare time and is motivated enough to work at one of the world's most popular non-paying jobs, Wikipedia editor. And believe me, it is a popular job. Well, okay, then is Wikipedia neutral? If you go and look on Wikipedia and look up an LDS-related subject, will it be neutral? Wikipedia policy states that everything in the article should be neutral point of view. This is abbreviated as NPOV. That's a term you'll see thrown around. And that also means that POV means you're biased. Okay, so if somebody's adding POV to an article, that means they're trying to bias the article. This is really easy when editing the article cat or door. These are not necessarily controversial subjects, although somebody told me yesterday that cat actually is a controversial subject. It's not so easy to maintain neutrality when editing the article Joseph Smith or First Vision. That is when all of the fun begins. Now, I have developed a model that describes the editing process that one can see on LDS-related Wikipedia articles. It looks something like this. Just imagine three people sitting in a circle. One of them is a believer, one of them is a critic, and the other one is a non-Mormon who really knows nothing about the church. And imagine that they're passing that Rubik's Cube around the circle and that each one gets a chance to make 3 or 4 moves before they pass it on to the next person. And the objective of each person is, of course, to try to get their color to cross the face of that cube. That pretty much describes the editing process on Wikipedia articles about the church. The new editor sets sail toward the Wiki article with high hopes, thinking that he or she is well armed. The reality is often very, very different. They don't see, buried below the surface, the wreckage of all of the past edit wars, nor do they see the nuclear sub that is ready to blast them out of the water the first time they try to land. Now, Wikipedia isn't just what you see on the surface. You may see an article about Joseph Smith, but the real action, the really fun stuff that occurs on Wikipedia occurs behind the scenes on what's called the talk page. If you click the discussion tab up at the top, you will see page after page of discussion, and you will see archives of these discussions as they fill up and they get moved into archives. You will see everything that was ever discussed about this article. You can see things such as edit warring over the paragraph, or John Fox reverts again, and I'll tell you who John Fox is in a minute. Reverts after good faith edits. Let's try again. Just imagine a message board which is filled with critics and believers, and then imagine that those critics and believers have to collaborate in order to produce a written article. That's Wikipedia. Some things heard on the talk page. You are even simpler than I imagined. As far as guffaws go, look in the mirror. Your LDS church is more often the subject of ridicule here by many Wikipedia editors. This is a rather choice Wikipedia editor who went by the screen name Duke53, and after 5 years of harassing LDS editors, actually managed to get himself permanently banned recently. But knowing Wikipedia, he'll be back. From a Wikipedia administrator, I'd love to ban all Mormons from editing those articles due to bias, but that's never going to happen, so in this case, we just have to let the opposing parties work it out between themselves. Well, not everybody is like that. This guy comes back and goes, I wonder how far your logic goes. Would you ban all scientists from editing articles about science? How about banning doctors from editing articles about health? Banning Native Americans from editing articles about their tribes? I hope you see where this logic leads. Now, I don't know whether that's an LDS editor or not, but he saw things as they should have been seen. Heard on the talk page, frankly, every time you start citing Wikipedia rules, I tune them out as Mormon smokescreen. That's a curious one. Mormon smokescreen. And at this point, I'll introduce you to the editor who calls himself John Fox. John Fox is not his real name. It is a screen name, a pseudonym that he uses when he edits. He is actually a professor of history at Bob Jones University, an active evangelical. And he has taken editorial control over several high-profile LDS articles, among them Joseph Smith Jr. and First Vision, Golden Plates. If you show up on one of those articles, you will, very likely, with 99% probability, have your edits reverted by John Fox. This is a typical summary of an exchange by an LDS editor, seen on the talk page, after having he and a number of other editors were contending with John Fox. The LDS editor summarized it like this. Here's a statement that gives a good balanced summary of Smith's background. Everyone but Fox. Okay, Fox. It has to mention treasure seeking. Everyone else. No, that's undue detail. Fox. Let's compromise by weakening the reference to Christianity and adding a statement about treasure seeking. Everyone else. No, that's undue detail for the lead. Fox. I'd be willing to throw out the sentence about Smith's background and just have a statement about treasure seeking. Everyone else. Heads explode. This is the best summary of interaction with John Fox I've ever seen an LDS editor post on the talk page. Wikipedia has a rule that you should not perform original research. Articles should rely mainly on published, reliable secondary sources and on tertiary sources, but they should not use primary sources and then have those sources interpreted by the Wikipedia editor. Well, what does that mean to us? It means primary sources should not be used and interpreted directly. And in an article about Joseph Smith, this means that Joseph Smith's own words are excluded, and Wikipedia editors must rely upon what other published authors say about Joseph Smith. Now that means Fawn Brody is back, and this time she has a wiki. She's at the top of the stack. And these books that you see here are actually all books that are used as references in the article Joseph Smith. They're also my personal library. No original research, so how does that end up in practice? Well, here's a line from Wikipedia article First Vision. However, when in October of 1830, the author Peter Bowder interviewed Smith for a religious book he was writing, he said Smith was unable to recount a Christian experience. Okay, it's a statement about what Peter Bowder said. But the Wiki editor decided to add his own spin. Thus, either Smith did not view this early remission of sins or vision as a Christian experience. He forgot about the experience when asked by Bowder, or Smith and Bowder somehow miscommunicated. Now, this was not written by John Fox. This was written by an LDS Wikipedia editor. Even in his original research, which he's not supposed to do, the Wiki editor neglects to consider Bowder's own attitude, which is, among these imposters, there has one arisen by the name of Joseph Smith Jr., from a book called The Kingdom and Gospel of Jesus Christ, contrasted with that of Antichrist. So his original research, which he shouldn't have done, wasn't even accurate. Here's how an author's opinion can become Wikipedia fact. The source is D. Michael Quinn, Early Mormonism and the Magic Worldview. In that book, on page 322, Quinn calls the Smith family unchurched Christians who possessed seer stones and a lot of other magic items. This is how that source is used in Wikipedia. No members of the Smith family were church members in 1820. the reported date of the first vision. The implication being that Joseph Smith made up his story about members of his family joining the Presbyterians in 1820. So just because something is sourced in Wikipedia doesn't mean it's sourced well. It is possible to reinterpret those sources the way you want, because Quinn never said no members of the Smith family were church members. He said they were unchurched Christians. How about synthesis? Let's take a source from Richard Bushman, in which this is rough stone rolling. He said the Great Revival of 1816 and 17, which nearly doubled the number of Palmyra Presbyterians, was in progress when the Smiths arrived. We know this, documented fact. Source number 2, Dan Vogel, Early Mormon Documents. Indeed, it was the revival of 1824 to 25 rather than the revival of 1817 or the one he remembered for 1820. How are these sources used in Wikipedia? Wait for it. Come on. Okay. Wikipedia states, based on these sources, that in the Palmyra area itself, the only large multi-denominational revivals occurred in 18, 16, and 17, and 18, 24, and 25. The implication intended is Joseph Smith did not experience a revival or excitement in religion in the area in 1820. This is what Wikipedia is implying using those sources, which are synthesized to say something that they actually didn't say. The Palmyra Register notes the occurrence of a Methodist camp meeting in the area in June of 1820, but even this fact doesn't quite make it into the Wikipedia article. My animation is slow. I apologize for that. The Wikipedia article states that D. Michael Quinn notes a Methodist camp meeting in Palmyra in June 1818. But deep in the footnotes, what this fact is sourced to is an article called Joseph Smith's Experience of a Methodist Camp Meeting in 1820 by D. Michael Quinn. So the only mention of this camp meeting in 1820 happens to be buried deep within the footnotes, and it's sourcing, it's supporting a statement in Wikipedia that doesn't actually really quite match what it ought to say. Well, how about discrediting the sources? Often you'll find statements like this in LDS Wikipedia articles, and this one's choice. In the opinion of non-Mormon author Wesley Walters, apologists for the Mormon position treat Smith's reference as something. Now, why ask the non-Mormon author Wesley Walters what the Mormon apologists think? LDS apologist Milton Bachman wrote that, or according to Mormon apologist Larry C. Porter. So the word apologist, which some of Wikipedia editors tend to realize is going to be misunderstood as apologizing, makes its way into the article so that it makes it look like those that are defending the LDS position are actually apologizing for it. And in fact, in many cases, you will see critics labeled as scholars and LDS scholars labeled as apologists. How about using some real quotes from LDS scholars? How about this quote from LDS historian James B. Allen? The fact that none of the available contemporary writings about Joseph Smith in the 1830s, none of the publications of the church in that decade, and no contemporary journal or correspondence yet discovered mentions the story of the first vision, is convincing evidence that at best it received only limited circulation in those early days. Okay, that's fine. That's what James B. Allen wrote. Let's see how Wikipedia reinterprets James B. Allen's quote. None of the available contemporary writings about Joseph Smith in the 1830s, none of the church publications in that decade, and no contemporary journal or correspondence yet discovered mentions the story in convincing fashion. Now, wait a minute. Did James B. Allen say that there was no story of the first vision that actually related the story in convincing fashion? And yet, look at the Wikipedia reference. That's the reference. Now, that actually existed in a Wikipedia article, but that was a bit too much even for me to take, so I confronted the author on that one, and he changed it, because I think he realized that he wasn't going to get away with that one. And he said, "I apologize for what was almost certainly my transcription error. But I think if there's any change of meaning, it's trifling." John Fox. Now, Wikipedia has a page called Wikispeak, and it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it defines what we call good faith. You're supposed to treat other Wikipedia editors as if they are editing in good faith, even regardless of what they're actually doing. Good faith is a blind and uncritical acceptance of whatever nonsense the editor asking you to assume good faith has presented. Questioning another editor's good faith will always result in a response that to so question is bad faith. To point out that pointing out your questioning of the other editor's bad faith is bad faith is in itself bad faith and will result in blocking. So in other words, you don't question the good faith of another editor. If you do question the good faith of another editor, then you get kicked off. Well, John Fox has his definition of good faith. "I prevented Mormon POV from being introduced into a NPOV lead. That's not only good faith, it's commendable good faith, and the upholding of the best interests of the Wikipedia community." See, John is not really adding his point of view. He's simply upholding the interests of the Wikipedia community. How about pretending that the sources don't exist? From the Wikipedia article, First Vision, we have this. John Taylor gave a complete account of the First Vision story in an 1850 letter, written as he began missionary work in France. And he may have alluded to it in a discourse given in 1859. However, and there's always a however, when Taylor discussed the origins of Mormonism in 1863, he did so without alluding to the canonical First Vision story. And in 1879, he referred to Joseph Smith having asked the angel which of the sects was correct. What kind of a picture have we painted here of John Taylor in Wikipedia? The picture being painted is that John Taylor initially talked about the First Vision, but somehow just decided it just wasn't that important anymore. And this shows a gradual decrease in that importance. But let's look at John Taylor's references to the First Vision. John Taylor is on record as explicitly mentioning the visit of the Father and the Son at least 15 times between 1876 and 1892. Most of them are in the Journal of Discourses, and most of them, they're online, and they're linked. Very easy to find. John Taylor's 1859 allusion, as stated in the Wikipedia article, includes the phrase, "If any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not," and goes on to state that the Lord did hear him and told him what to do. This was no allusion. It was a reference to the canonical First Vision story. Finally, John Taylor mentioned the First Vision twice on the same day in 1879. One refers to the angel, and the other refers to the Father and the Son. But that doesn't get into the Wikipedia article. Once again, I had to go talk to John Fox. And after being presented with all of this evidence, along with all of the source citations, John Fox responds, "I accept that John Taylor mentioned the First Vision at least twice." Well, technically, I guess that's true. He mentioned it 15 times. That's at least twice. That he did not emphasize it during his tenure as president is just as true as ever. Thus, a new encyclopedic fact is born, because that's what Wikipedia says. Wikispeak, the edit summary. The edit summary is a creative opportunity to simultaneously insult the previous editor, continue the talk page dispute, and place the verisimilitude of your edit beyond any reasonable doubt, all in 200 characters or less. An example: replaced section with better wording, mostly from Fox. Joseph Smith's words are junk. POV, non-encyclopedic, and tell us nothing except about his hubris. But you know what's funny about this? The editor that did this, High 540? High 540 and John Fox are the same person. Wiki speak, the edit war. What is the edit war? The edit war is repeatedly replacing the current error with the previous error. And in order to demonstrate the edit war, I will show you a day in the life of Joseph Smith Jr.'s wiki page. At 1:15 a.m., Joseph Smith became opposed to animal cruelty. At 2:44 a.m., Sidney Rigdon became his VP running mate. And that remained most of the day until 2:18 p.m., at which point an editor came in and removed the comments about animal cruelty and Sidney Rigdon. At 6:49 in the evening, someone came in and removed any reference to folk religion and treasure seeking. A few minutes later, they removed that Joseph Smith was a theocrat, politician, city planner, military leader, and polygamist, and replaced that entire sentence with Joseph Smith was regarded as a prophet. A few minutes later, 6:54, somebody came in and removed regarded as a prophet and re-added the information about Joseph being a theocrat, politician, city planner, military leader, and polygamist. A few minutes later, somebody came back and added that he was regarded as a prophet by followers. A few minutes later, that person removed folk religion and treasure seeking once again from the article. A few minutes later, somebody added it back. A few minutes later, it was removed again. And finally, by 7:13 p.m., somebody added back folk religion, treasure seeking, but kept the phrase regarded as a prophet by followers. So our net result on Joseph Smith's page for that day was that somebody added the phrase that he was regarded as a prophet by followers. And that is a day in the life of Joseph Smith Jr.'s wiki page. So what you would learn about Joseph Smith might vary depending upon what time or minute of the day you happen to look at the article. Richard L. Bushman on the Wikipedia article, Joseph Smith. What I think is the real failing of this piece is that it lacks scope. It just picks its way along from one little fact to another little fact, all of them ending up making Joseph Smith an ignoble character of some kind. So it becomes a picky piece that isn't inaccurate, but it sort of lacks depth. It ends up being shallow, I think. Finally, I want to talk about what I call the Attack Biography. The Wikipedia Attack Biography. On August 28, 2008, an ex-Mormon comes in and edits the Wikipedia biography of one Daniel C. Peterson. You may have heard of him. If not, he has a wiki bio. You can go read about him there. Come on, animation. You can do it. The editor removes the first paragraph of the article, which read, Daniel C. Peterson is a professor of Islamic studies and Arabic at Brigham Young University and currently serves as editor-in-chief of BYU's Middle Eastern Text Initiative. Now, what could he possibly want to replace that with? Daniel C. Peterson is a Mormon apologist. Oh, and by the way, he works at BYU. Did you know that? But that's not all. To a 205-word article, the editor adds a new controversy section comprising 451 additional words. Now the article about Daniel C. Peterson, 2/3 of it is about controversy. And by the way, he works at BYU. The Attack Biography. Fortunately, some sane Wikipedia editors came along later and reversed all of that, but it didn't happen for a couple months. So there are some choices. You can edit Wikipedia and spend a lot of time arguing with other editors about the placement of a word or a sentence or a paragraph, or you can edit something else and just get it to show up in Google. Well, okay. So how are we doing in that regard? Well, this is from an ex-Mormon message board, the ex-Mormon subreddit. Anyone else sick of Googling for evidence against Mormonism and getting results back from FairMormon, which distorts the evidence in history? Well, I'm not tired of it. I think it's fine. I didn't see the problem. You know this is an ex-Mormon board, by the way, because they have this creative reinterpretation of facsimile 1, but I have to hand them credit. The reclining figure in the white shirt does have 2 hands, and there is only 1 bird in the picture. That's the little Reddit man holding the knife. FairMormon is the Fair Wiki. Fair Wiki is another wiki. Like Wikipedia, it is a collection of articles, and there's a lot in there. It is the largest online database of critical claims against the church and responses to them. The Fair Wiki currently contains 4,556 content articles, with more added each week. It has had over 9 million views since it was created. Okay, that's great. We've got a wiki. We've got a place to put articles. We have editors that go in there and edit those articles. But what happens in Google? Because that's where the battlefront is, isn't it? What comes up in Google? Wikipedia. Well, let's Google a few things. Googling Book of Mormon anachronisms. Number 1, Wikipedia, no surprise. But look at number 2. That's out of 7,300 results. Fair Wiki is number 2. Let's Google Kinderhook plates. There's a talk about the Kinderhook plates coming up right after mine, after lunch. A popular subject. Looks like 45,000 results. Wikipedia is number 1. Fair Wiki is number 2. Remember what I said earlier, you never look beyond the first page when you Google. Being near the top, that's a good thing. But you know what? Wikipedia doesn't always win. Google a Jew in the Book of Mormon. Fair Wiki is number 1. Wikipedia is number 2. And sometimes Wikipedia doesn't even show up at all. Jesus Christ, brother of Satan, the number 1 Google result is the Fair Wiki. Thank you. I was hoping that meant I was done, but I'm almost done. I am almost done. The most popular Fair Wiki pages. The main page, Search for the Truth DVD. You may have heard of that one. 50 questions to ask Mormons. It's an evangelical attack on the church. Joseph Smith polygamy, marriages to young women, Book of Mormon DNA. Number 6 has always confused me. I don't get it. I just don't get it. But Shiz Struggles to Breathe has always beat out California Prop 8, Jesus Christ, brother of Satan, and blacks in the priesthood. Okay, Shiz is the first page that Greg Smith ever did, and so he put something secret in that page that made it show up as one of the most popular pages. How about Google hits? What Google hits bring people to the Fair Wiki? In other words, people typing things into Google that land them on the Fair Wiki. Well, the number 9 is Ethan Smith, Book of Mormon. Number 8, Emma Smith, polygamy. This is the text that they actually type into Google that causes them to come to the Fair Wiki. Number 7, Jupiter Talisman. Number 6, Mountain Meadows Massacre. Number 5, White Horse Prophecy. Number 4, Kinderhook plates. Number 3, Blood Atonement. You're wondering what number 2 is. Dan Brown, Mormons and Masons. I'm telling you, if Dan Brown, checked the results of a Google search, he'd be writing a book about Mormons and Masons right now, because that is what brings people to our wiki for some strange reason. And Joseph Smith polygamy. Well, wikis are here to stay. They're a part of our lives. They are already one of the most popular sources of information on the web. They're constantly changing, and hopefully they're constantly improving. The constantly changing nature of wikis means that we need to be careful to make sure that facts and sources are accurately represented in whatever wiki they are in. And finally, I'm going to give you the definition of Wikipedia according to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a sandcastle on the shore of the Sea of Time. Within play dramas on miniature stages, as the actors argue over the exact position of each grain of sand, unaware of the approaching tide. Or more succinctly, Wikipedia is a group of 12-year-olds debating the alleged notability of some ancient dude called Frank Sinatra. And I thank you for your attention. Any questions? No questions? Okay. You know, out of all the questions I anticipated, I knew that would be the first. The question is, have I ever found out who John Fox is? The answer is yes, actually quite some time ago. But I've never published his real name. What's more is he knows that I know who he is. He figured that out a long time ago. And in fact, what I did before that Deseret News article got published about all of this back in January, I had gone through certain Wikipedia articles, one of them being First Vision, another one Golden Plates, and First Vision, heavily edited by Fox. And I had posted detailed line-by-line responses to things that were inaccurate in those articles, some of which you just saw on the screen. And an amazing thing happened when I watched and saw that John Fox and the other editors became aware that FAIR was critiquing their edits. John Fox complained a lot. But I also noticed something else. I soon saw him starting to fix a lot of those errors. He was coming to the FAIR Wiki, reviewing those articles, and he was going into Wikipedia, and he was fixing them himself, which was actually my intention. I didn't want to go in and battle to fix them. I wanted him to fix them. And he fixed a lot of them. Complained about FAIR up and down, but while he was doing it, he was correcting some of his mistakes that we had highlighted. And as he corrected them, I took them off of the FAIR Wiki. Now, he hasn't corrected them all, because he thinks some of them are trivial. But there was some progress, actually quite a bit. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. You got in there while I was talking. I didn't see it. What criteria is used, or how does something come up first on Google? You know, that is the question of the ages. If somebody ever actually comes up with the answer to the question about how to make something come up number one on Google, they are going to be rich. Because send money? Oh, spend money. You can spend money, but I can guarantee you I've spent no money on the FAIR Wiki. But so I don't know why we come up so high, but the thing is, Google modifies their algorithms all the time. And nobody really knows what those algorithms are except the folks at Google. And so to get something to come up high on Google, the one thing that I do know is that it requires that you have certain keywords in your article, or perhaps in the title of your article. And one of the things that I worked on with Greg Smith over the past year was past year and a half or 2 years, is we completely restructured the FAIR Wiki so that it's hierarchical. Wikipedia is not hierarchical, the FAIR Wiki is. And what that means is that articles in the FAIR Wiki can be truly sub-articles of other articles, which means it carries along all of the titles of the parent articles. And when we did that, suddenly we started going up higher in the Google rankings, because all of those keywords were being carried along. So that's the way we figured out to try to rise in Google. But honest truth is, nobody really knows how Google rankings work. What is the call to action for this audience? Well, I'm not going to tell you all to go edit Wikipedia. You can, if you want. It requires a lot of patience, a lot of time. It's best if you don't have a full-time job of your own. And, you have to have patience. But there are, I didn't really mention this in the presentation, but there are many good LDS editors on Wikipedia. And they are in there, they're fighting those battles, and they're trying to make the articles balanced. They're trying to remove some of the things like I've shown you here, and they spend a considerable amount of time trying to do so. I guess the call to action would be to be aware of what comes up in your Google search. When the missionaries came to my house a couple of months ago, I asked them, I said, so what happens when you introduce yourselves and you get in the door and then you leave? And he said, well, the first thing they do is they sit down at the computer and they Google Mormon or they Google Joseph Smith. It's just something we have to deal with. And so if they're Googling Mormon or they're Googling Joseph Smith, then we need to be aware of what's coming up in Google. And then those things that come up in Google are the things that we need to be aware of. We need to be editing them, or we need to at least be responding to them somewhere. That's I think, what I would say in response to that question. How does a site rank number 1 in Google? Like I said in the previous question, I don't know, but I'm no expert on search engine optimization, and I'm always open to suggestions as to how we can improve that. Yes, it says SEOmoz.org has a lot of information about what's involved. I'll check it out. I'll check it out. As you probably figured out by now, I'm very involved with the Fair Wiki and trying to make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. All right, that's the last question, I think. Thank you very much.